grab your popcorn and snacks, find a comfy spot, take a seat or lie down, and let me transport you to a place of fantasy, ghost stories, ancient legends, odd creatures, alien encounters, and other magical topics. You may even decide to join the conversation. From faraway lands to your own backyard, with a small dash of pixie dust, turn out the lights and open your minds. The journey is about to begin. Good evening, everybody. Happy Saturday. This is something you don't see every day, is us being on a Saturday. But like I told you guys, we are starting to build up our shows again and get things going. So my name is Charlotte. I'm going to be your host for the next hour. I'm also the owner of the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team based out of Sacramento, California. We are 45 strong up and down the state of California, which means if you think you have something going on that's paranormal, we can help you out. Just look us up on Facebook and just about every social media location, and you can find us and get a hold of us, and we take it from there. Okay? We'll work real close with you. My guest tonight, my guest tonight is just close to my heart. I spent 5 years as a crime and court reporter. I hate to say it, I enjoyed it. It's just the stories are so interesting. And Mitzi Szereto has been on here before, a couple of times before. And she's always got an interesting book about true crime, about different crimes. So it should be fun to talk to her tonight. We're going to be talking about women who commit murder. I said heinous crimes because I wanted to be, politically correct on YouTube today. I didn't want to have any issues with YouTube. But women who unalive people, we'll just leave it at that, because it's all supposed to be proper. So she'll be with us tonight. She'll be with us in a couple minutes, but I want to say her books are excellent, and I really enjoy talking to her. We always have a good time when she's on. So I'm really curious to see what's going on with this new book she's got. Let me hit the chat room here. So if you guys are on YouTube and you want to chat, feel free to chat. I can see you. We're working on getting Facebook hooked up to this thing and all that stuff. There's just details. Tomorrow I'll be back at 5 p.m. Pacific as well. We're going to be reading from some holiday horror story, okay? Don't know which one, but we're going to start our holiday horror stories and stuff. So just be on the lookout for that. But let me get Mitzi in here, and she can tell you about herself, and then we can go from there, okay? All right, here we go. Hello.
Hi.
How's it going?
Fine. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I had a little trouble getting in this.
Yeah, I mean, it's new, and there's still some glitchy stuff, but it is what it is now. So, well, that was streamer.
It kept asking me, do I want to stream to my own channels? And I'm trying to link up with my Facebook page. It wasn't working. It kept going to Teddy's account. Then I kept going. I tried YouTube, and then it didn't like me. So I'm like, oh no, it's after 5.
I think for me, this is Google based for me. And so when I try to go access my Facebook and everything is Firefox based. So I think that's where I'm having the problem, where I can't hook them in. So I got to figure out something, to be able to stream accordingly. But it's not a bad stream. The quality is not bad. When you see it on YouTube, it's just a matter of figuring all this stuff out. I just started using this really heavily, like normally, like I say, once a week, and then I'm doing 3 this weekend, like within the last couple of weeks. So I'm just getting the bugs out of this one too. So it confuses me. Don't feel bad.
No, I get it. It's like the more things are supposed to get simple, the more complicated they get.
Yeah. So how have you been doing?
Oh, I'm all right. I keep out of mischief, I guess. Always busy. What can I say?
You got the new book out, but that's been out since April, right? Yeah.
Yeah. This came out. Is this actually not showing? You know what? I'm reversed. How is that? I'm reversed. Can I fix that?
I have no idea.
Oh, I wasn't reversed earlier. Now I'm reversed. I guess this won't let me unreverse myself.
Maybe I can do it from my end. That's something I'm gonna have to look up. Okay.
Well, hang on. I just saw something that says mirror camera. Yes.
Ah, there you go.
Yes. Okay. Because I mean, I know it's so annoying when you got this reverse image of people, and then so this is the book. That's the book.
Women Who Murder.
Yeah, and you can read it properly now since it's not backward.
Women Who Unalive. Politically correct is unalive. I was just watching some YouTube videos. There's a group of people that go around, or a group of guys that go around and find people. That might be interesting for you. There's this group of guys that go around and all they do is rescue people in cars, that have been underwater for a long time. And they do it by donation. They do it free service. And all people have to do is contact them, and they have divers. They have a whole rig, a whole setup, and they go down and search rivers and stuff.
Well, that kind of reflects on one of the stories in the book, actually, which was a case like that.
Well, tell me. I mean, you have the most fascinating books. You come up with the most fascinating topics. How do you find these topics, or do they find you?
Kind of both. This is actually my 8th true crime book, and they've each been on a different subject matter. And as you know, I've been on your show before, and we were discussing one of the books from the Best New True Crime Stories series. I can't even remember which book it was now. And so this was just, I just sort of thought, well, you know what, let's kind of do a breakaway and do a standalone volume. And people are just, there's just such a fascination when it's women who commit crimes. I mean, I guess we just don't want to recognize that women can be just as evil as men. Obviously, this book proves otherwise. They definitely can. So yeah, I mean, I just try to find something that I think people will be interested, and it seems like they're interested.
Well, that show on Dateline Discovery, was it Dateline Discovery or Discovery Investigation or whatever that is? They had that show going for a while. Deadly Women.
Yeah. I mean, with true crime, it's difficult to actually find things that haven't already been done. And I mean, we're just so inundated now with shows and podcasts and books and films as well. And that's the challenge when I'm putting together these books, because I ask people to pitch their idea to me, not anything lengthy, just like a line or two about what case that they think I might be interested in that might work for the book. And sometimes they'll come up with something that is a case that's quite well known. And I have to say, well, okay, can you give this some kind of a new spin, something, say something different about it? And so that's the challenge. So, I mean, the books are all kind of a mixture of cases that are more obscure, such as the one I wrote for this book, and cases that are more familiar, but that there's maybe something new to look at, or perhaps the writer has a firsthand experience with it. And that's been probably, I think in each one of my books, there's been at least one writer who has had some sort of experience. Either they worked on a case, they were in the courtroom, whatever. So that gives it an interesting perspective as well.
Well, when I mentioned I was going to have you on the show, one of my followers on TikTok said, "Oh, Lizzie Borden," and I went, "Well, God, Lizzie Borden's been done to death." But
what, they thought you were going to have Lizzie Borden on the show?
That you were going to write about Lizzie Borden, and I was like,
I left my axe in the other room. You want to wait a minute? I'll go get it.
I have a good one for you. I have a fairly good one for you, and it's along this line. And I covered it as a reporter out in Woodland, and this woman had killed her husband, cold blood, and she tried to come off as the sweet old lady. They lived in a trailer park, and the gunshots went off. The cops go out there, and she's standing there crying and all this. And when they did the research on it, the coroner and the detectives came out. At first, they were buying it. Oh yeah, he used to hit me. He used to do this, and he used to do that. So they were very sympathetic. But once they got out there and did the research, they realized that she was standing directly above him when she pulled the trigger 3 times.
Guess she didn't want to miss.
She didn't want to miss. And the creepy thing was that she used to have notes, for shopping and stuff. And she would put the notes on her mirror in lipstick.
Okay.
And the cops were seeing all this stuff. But it was weird. But they did have a history of drinking, both of them. And they had a history of arguing. But nobody thought that the family never thought she would take it as far as to kill him. And I don't know, I can't remember if he was elderly, if he was sick, or what his deal was. But somehow she got him out of that chair, and she started just firing on him and firing on him and firing on him.
Wow. Where was that? Was that a California case?
That's a California case. It happened, let's see, when was the last time I was like 2011 or 2010? Something like that. I remember that was one of the first big murder cases I handled.
Wow.
Mrs. Journey.
Yeah, you jumped in completely. You didn't even wade into the water with that one.
No, they just threw me in, and I just went, "Whoa!" But she looks so nice, you know. Well, it's like that lady out here, the famous case. Oh, what is her name? Dang it! She died. I think she died a bit ago. The one that killed all her boarders for the
Oh,
insurance money.
yes. Yes. The one down in Southern California, right?
No, there was one up here in Sacramento.
Oh, there was, oh, maybe it's that one. I'm sure it's the same
Yeah,
case I'm thinking of. Yeah.
yeah. She killed like 4 or 5 reporters and buried them. They found the bodies in the backyard.
Wow.
And she had help. She would dig these. She would have the gardeners help her dig holes because she was planting her yard. And how she got the bodies out, I don't know.
Fertilizing
Yeah,
the flowers.
fertilizing the flowers. I mean, there's a lot of that out there. So
A,
tell me about what you found. See, I got the ones that I have.
yeah, I think sometimes it's better to avoid people. It's safer.
Nice, sweet old ladies.
Yeah, well, whatever, everyone has a mask. You don't
Yeah,
quite know what's beneath
everyone
it.
has a mask. Who'd have figured?
Yeah. You just
So
have to
tell me.
cross your fingers.
Yeah. So tell me about the cases that you have or that you can share with me.
Sure. Well, since you mentioned that business about the divers that go
Mm-hmm.
looking for people, I'll mention the case that, and also because she's been in the news lately. Susan Smith, the woman who
Yeah.
who killed her 2 little boys,
Mm-hmm.
and that's covered in the book. And again, that was a really well-known case. But what gave this an extra special focus is that Kathy Pickens, my contributor, she attended the trial. And so that kind of she was giving us a really incredible bird's eye view of the trial and of
Mm-hmm.
Susan, and then going into obviously her background, which was quite dysfunctional and no doubt played a major role in this, and also about sort of a bird's eye view on this little town, this little southern town, and how people were reacting. And so, I mean, that's an interesting case. And I brought it up because I just saw, I believe yesterday it was in the press, maybe it was 2 days before, that she has been denied parole because she just came up for parole. So that was sort of fresh in my mind on that one.
Well, for the people that don't know about that story, tell us, because I know there's people that don't know about it.
Well, they should read the book.
Okay.
I don't want to
Okay.
tell
You don't want to
everything.
tell everything.
Yeah. But she drove her 2 little boys into a lake and left them there
Okay.
to drown. But I mean, there's just a lot of pieces to this case, and even though
Right.
she was denied parole, there's still a lot of things there that
Right.
kind of contributed to what she did and her state of mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, there's not any black and white in a lot of these cases. I covered a case which was one of my, I really like this because it's an obscure case, but it's about Iran's first known female serial killer.
Hmm. That's
And
interesting.
I enjoyed that because I knew that nobody would know this case.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and I mean, it was a real challenge to write because I was dealing with translated works. I did get some help from some people in Iran, actually, who helped me out with some information and some research material and whatnot. But that was an interesting case again, and it's another one of these where things aren't always so black and white.
Mm-hmm.
This woman, she basically starts picking up women who wear lots of gold jewelry, mostly older women that would maybe see her as almost like a daughter figure,
Mm-hmm.
and conceivably could be her mother's age. Offered them lifts. Maybe they were pray at the shrine praying, and she, let me give you a ride home, or let me give you a ride home from the medical facility, whatever. And in that culture, that's not such a big deal. People are more
Right.
trusting. You don't, it's just a different, you don't immediately like look at someone who offers you a ride and think serial killer like you would in the United States. So it made it pretty easy for her to get victims. And her intention, and she didn't start out with the intention to kill people, but her intention was to take their gold, because gold jewelry is a big thing there. They have beautiful gold jewelry. And this woman was desperate. She was desperate for money. She had a husband who was pretty much bloody useless, drug addict, didn't work, didn't contribute to the household, didn't even help out in the household. Two children, one of whom had I believe it's cerebral palsy. Sorry if I can't remember offhand, it's been a while. And, you know, medical expenses and, you know, so the burden was on her. She was getting really, really desperate for money to keep the household going, keep the family going. So one, you know, she kills one. She hadn't planned to kill her, but she suddenly realized that, okay, look, this woman's going to be able to ID me, and I can't risk that. And then it just, I guess, in a way, got easier and easier, and her modus operandi got more and more clever and professional. But you know, there's just a lot of things behind that, and you have to read the story to find out more. But I enjoyed writing that one and researching it and just sort of getting into what took her from A to B to C to D to, you know.
I think it's interesting because you don't hear any story. I mean, any stories at all about those, you know, Iranian women or Muslim women doing stuff like that.
Well, it's not common. I mean, there have been, for my introduction, I just wanted to get an idea as far as is serial killing even a thing there? And surprisingly, I mean, okay, great. They're nowhere near at the top of the list as, say, the United States is, or Britain. Britain's had their fair share for a small country. But they've had serial killers, some pretty nasty ones. So, but having a woman as a serial killer, that is just culturally way out. And, you know, and I think it perhaps contributed to one of the reasons why she was so vilified in the press. And interestingly, I believe that, you know, from what I'm seeing and what I remember of different cases, it does seem female serial killers do become more vilified than their male counterparts. I mean, I always keep referencing Ted Bundy, but I mean, everybody knows Ted Bundy.
Right.
The guy has sort of become the status of a rock star. Let's face it, the serial killer rock star. Despite what he's done, what he did was horrible. But the women, somehow it's like, you know, devil incarnate, you know, get out the crucifixes, get the pitchforks. There's just sort of a different attitude toward women who maybe do the same crimes, or maybe not even as heinous.
Right. Well, you know, when you think, like you mentioned Ted Bundy, women can be charming. Women can be very charming, very nice, like Mrs. Journey and this other woman that I talked about tonight. They can be very charming. So maybe that's why, you know, you know, they look at Ted Bundy for this stuff, you know, to equate this stuff so they can get an understanding because he was charming. I mean,
Yeah, well, you know, that's how he, you know, got all his victims. Although, you know, in retrospect, when you look back, because he's got this reputation that he was so good looking and everything. But, you know, when you really look at the old footage, I mean, he was kind of a greaseball.
Yeah, he was.
I don't know, maybe it was a 70s thing and all the guys look like greaseballs. But I mean, you know, you kind of wonder like, what's all the fuss about this guy, you know? But I guess he just didn't look like what, you know, devil horns monster that you think he's going to be, this like, you know, horrible, you know, creature.
And I think having Mark Harmon play him in the movie kind of set that up too. You know?
Well, wait. Well, Mr. Adorable Charlie Hunnam, I think, is playing Ed Gain, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Although they said he's unrecognizable, I mean, as Charlie, but I mean, like, you know, Charlie's pretty hot, so it's sort of interesting, interesting casting there.
I think there were a lot of shocked people when The Deliberate Stranger came out. There were a lot of shocked people that, you know, that were shocked that Mark Harmon would even do a part like that, but he was perfect.
There's been so many Bundy films, though. What I watched one not that long ago on Netflix, and then I suddenly realized, like halfway through, that I'd seen it before. But that also had a really very attractive male actor, and I'm sorry I can't remember his name, but and he did an excellent job.
Yeah.
But well, he was more attractive than he should have been. Let's put it that way.
Well, yeah. When people think of a malicious killer, they think they're, you know, like the Hunchback of Notre Dame, right? You know, I got this going on, you know, and that's what people think, and that's why I think those movies like the Deliberate Stranger, you know, having to do with like Ted Bundy and stuff. That's why they're so appealing to people, and people like him are appealing because they don't look like that. Like women, for instance, women do not look like that. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
now when you look at these women's cases now, especially because I used to watch the Deadly Women thing on TV, that show. How many women? I mean, as far as like when we talk about types of murder, okay, let's talk about types of murder that they do. Heinous crime is a heinous crime because you see a lot of poisonings because it's easy for them because they're cooking. So what do you think is the biggest type of killing that women do?
Well, there, as you mentioned, referencing poisoning, there's an assumption that that's the most common. And
Right.
yeah, I mean, historically too, as well, poison was an easier thing to get hold of, especially
Mhm.
since people used to have things like arsenic on the shelf, for
Mhm.
rat poison or whatever. So it was, some things that were more handy.
Mhm.
And then, you get into that whole motivation thing as well. But it's women historically have been a little less of the hands-on thing about getting their hands bloody, so to speak, and killing
Mhm.
in another way. But there are those cases where they get stuck in, and I've
Mhm.
got them in the book as well, where they are, yeah, way out there as far as their methodology in killing, and they're not afraid to get their hands dirty. But it is just not quite as common as men who are
Right.
they get more physical with the killing.
Mhm. Mhm. I just wonder if it's because it's a strength thing too. Where men have a lot of strength that they can do stuff. I mean, Bundy, and I'm probably going to get it on YouTube for this, but I mean, the one thing, where Bundy unalived somebody with a big tree branch. I mean, he just or a log and just got somebody, where a woman couldn't do that.
Well, unless she was really like maybe good weightlifting and whatnot. I mean, there's plenty of very strong women as well. But no, that's definitely true. I mean, I mean, physically, men tend to be larger than women,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
you've got more body mass and muscle mass, and so obviously, that's probably why it's so convenient for women to always be the victims too. But
Absolutely. Was
yeah.
there any story that you read, that somebody sent you? 'Cause I know you do these stories that they turn in, you go over them and all that. Was there anything that you read that really shocked you?
Oh, yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I mean, after 8 books already, it's sort of like, yeah, okay, what else is new? Um, I think, yeah, I guess I think I have to say, let me just reference this so I make sure I don't screw up the name. There's one that's completely as horrendous as you can get. The story is called Anna Bisesto, Anna Funesto, and it's about the Australian woman who essentially, well, she kills her partner, but I mean, she doesn't just kill him; she literally butchers him. And it was quite a famous case. And she was actually historically an abuser of her male partners, which is a real twist because
Mhm.
domestic abuse always, we tend to think of that as women being the victims of domestic
Mhm.
abuse, and statistically,
Mhm.
yes, they're top of the list of that.
Mhm.
However, there are cases where men have been victims of domestic abuse, and that in this case, the writer Alicia Holland, who wrote the piece, goes into that a bit, and also about the fact that it's just not as well known, and that male victims of domestic abuse are often more afraid to ask for help and come
Mhm.
forward because of that whole shame thing.
Yep.
So that's probably, and the chap in this story who is murdered, he does eventually ask for help, but it's pretty much too late by then. The wheels are in motion, and
Mhm.
you know
Mhm.
but I really like the way she approached the piece and discussed something that is just not often discussed.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, like you, 5 years on a crime beat. I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of stories. I've seen some stuff that are so unbelievable you can't believe it. That somebody would actually do it or do something like that. But I mean, it's interesting, like you say, when you start looking into, like, in particular, women. Women in crimes and things like that. Like the domestic abuse thing. I've seen cases like that as well. I've heard cases like that. TikTok. I was just looking at something, a 911 call from a gentleman whose wife was shooting through a door at him, and it was a 911 call. He was down in the basement, and they were trying to calm him down, and all this was going on, and then all of a sudden, he stops talking, and there's a bunch of words that you can't tell what they're saying, so nobody knows. It just cuts off. But I'm just saying is that I think the domestic abuse thing happens more often than not, and I think it goes both ways. Some women don't want to admit that their spouse is abusing them, but in some and then male it goes the other way too, because it's a manly thing to be able to control your woman, and if you can't control your woman, then it's an issue.
Well, a macho thing, a whole masculine thing. It's like an affront to their masculinity if they were admitting that their partner is beating on them. And in women's cases, we have so many. We've heard time and time again about women who don't really. They keep saying, "Oh, he just had a bad day. He promised it'll get better," and they don't reach out for help either. And it's shame is a big part of it. Shame, embarrassment, whatever. And it just makes the situation never go away. It doesn't end well,
No, it doesn't end well.
Stay in that. It's not going to end well, because it isn't going to end.
And I know my dad served on a jury here in Sacramento too, of a woman who killed her. I think she killed her husband. It was self-defense, but what made it worse was he was a police officer.
Yeah. Well, I've got a self-defense one too, a historical piece from Canada, and obviously because it was the early 1900s. It just wasn't acknowledged. I mean, from day one, everybody was against her. The judge, I mean, they didn't even give her time to prep for the trial. I think she had a lawyer, and the next day the court was starting, and this woman had been horrendously abused, and they didn't give a damn. I mean, they didn't. It was just something that she killed her husband, and she killed her husband, despite the fact that it was really saving herself and her kids. That she did it,
Yeah. And I know what he told me with that case too was that files were missing. Files went missing during the case.
His buddies.
Yeah. So of course I can't prove it, guys. I mean, don't get me in trouble on YouTube. I can't prove it, but that's what he told me.
Yeah.
So that was my first interest in becoming a court reporter, because I wanted to know more about how old that system worked. Over the years. Do you think that there's any? It's like when you look at these cases, and I know you got some, like you said, dating back to the early 1900s and stuff. Do you see any trends at all? Because I mean, sometimes crime goes through trends.
It's really hard to say. I mean, we're just obviously, reporting is more and more and more than it used to be, and with all the exposure of all these cases. I don't know. I think there's always going to be, like, the most horrendous cases are going to be sensationalized a lot and talked about a lot and done to death, so to speak. But I'm not really sure about trends. People are always going to kill, and there's always going to, unfortunately, I think the human race, or the species rather, just is a violent, overrated species, and they're just going to keep doing what they keep doing.
I also think that it's like the whole good and evil thing. I think if we had too much good in the world, that we'd be all Stepford people, So I think we need that evil part out there, and those violent people and stuff, and then the people that are angry, the Karens of the world. We need that out there to balance the rest of us, to balance everything out. Otherwise,
I don't know. It would be nice not to have a balance like that. It's hard to say. People, they claim, oh, the crime rate's gone down, blah, blah, blah. But then again, you see all these cases and you kind of wonder, well, I'm not sure where are they getting these statistics from. Or maybe it's just because things are just reported on a lot more, and as I said, sensationalized. And that's one thing I don't do in my books. I don't want any sensationalized stories. I don't want any glorification of criminals or any further victimization of the victims. I try to be really careful with that, because I want to have some responsibility and know that, when you're reading these stories, because I mean, like, some of these people are still alive, and why add to it? It's just basically just kind of giving people something to think about and informing them of something, and maybe they might, like I said, think a different way after reading a story. Instead of seeing things in black and white, they'll start seeing the other colors in there.
Well, I was just thinking while you were talking about that too, is how society, certain things and certain acts in our society have become the new normal.
Yeah. Well,
And I
we could
think
do another show on that one, right?
we're going to really show on that one,
Yeah.
But I think a lot of this, the way we look at these types of cases and stuff, it's like a new normal for people because it's all over TV, it's all over the internet, So you can go to YouTube and watch these cases. You can go on Discovery ID and watch these cases, and I just think it's become normalized.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, what you mentioned about the shock factor, and I mean, like like what's shocking anymore? That's the
Yeah.
sad thing is that we're no longer able to be shocked,
Mhm.
because it's like if whatever can be done has been done, and it's done again and again and again, and it's just like what's new anymore,
Mhm. Mhm.
So which is unfortunate.
Mhm. Mhm. Do you see? And you mentioned, that the woman that killed her husband, and this and that. But do you see a difference in the way women are prosecuted as to how men are prosecuted?
Well, I mean that particular piece is you just it makes you would it just would make you so angry when you read it that
Mhm.
the way what happened to this poor woman. I mean we have obviously, thank God, we've come a long way since then, and
Mhm.
you know self-defense and all of those things come into play, and
Mhm.
it can help someone in a trial and maybe even get them off in a trial. I mean, if it's legitimately self-defense, and
Mhm.
in many cases it is. So yeah, I mean, we've definitely come a long way. Having said that, you kind of wonder if we're going to end up going the other way at some point soon.
And then, like you say, you don't hear like the one in Iran, which I think is fascinating. I think that's a fascinating case to write about because you do not hear that stuff. You hear about Germany where there's hardly any crime supposedly. I've done reading on Germany and places like that, but you don't hear a lot of that stuff coming out of Europe.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've got a German story in here as well, which is a World War II piece about someone who is probably not very well known to readers. So I'm not going to say anything more because
Right.
it's a shorter piece, but that's a real shocker too. And I think it's a prime example of someone, a woman who is, I think you just have to say 100% evil with no redeeming value whatsoever,
There you
and no
go.
way to justify anything that this person has done. And it's a real extreme case.
Well, you look at it and you think that there was a woman with the death caps. There was a woman that was calling the shots in some of those death caps. So it makes you wonder about people.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
can you do that? Knowingly do that and sleep at night.
You wonder how a lot of people sleep at night.
You get to the point. It's like, and I hate to say it as a reporter, and probably you reading it, it's horrible to say it. You writing this stuff, you get to a certain point where you start thinking like police. And after the first 3 or 4 cases you go on, the shock and awe is gone because you start looking at it like police, and you get that whole facade that they have where it's not that you don't care, but you see it all the time and you're thinking, okay, here we go again. Here's this. Here's this. Here's this. Here's this. And that's how I got towards the end of my 5-year term. I was like, okay, here's this. Here's this. But I mean, you hate to be that way. And people, I've heard complaints from people about police where police seem uncaring and all this, and it's like, well, to see that every day, that they have to deal with, it's incredible. This is an
They
incredible
do
stress.
care, though. They do
Yeah,
care. I know
yeah.
I've become acquainted over the last few years with a lot of people from law enforcement. They do care, but they have to do their job, and
Hmm.
they can't function in their job if they're going to go blubbering over, some murdered
Hmm.
woman on the floor. I
Hmm.
mean, if they didn't care, they wouldn't do this job. I don't know why
Yeah.
anybody would even do this job, especially the way they're treated by a lot of people. And you know. But yeah, I mean, you have to kind of shut yourself off in some
Hmm.
ways, so you're just not going to be able to function, and that's just the way it is. Same thing with reporters,
Hmm. Hmm.
same thing with lawyers and judges, and you have to listen and observe, and that's what your job is, and
Hmm.
you have to kind of remove yourself from it, or you're just not going to be able to get it
Yeah.
done.
Oh yeah. It takes a certain person, and I'm not saying I'm a god or anything, because I'm not. But it takes a certain person to do a crime beat to be able to do that. because
Yeah.
you're out there with the cops, you're out there at night, you're seeing them pull bodies from the water, you're seeing all this stuff going on around you, and you have to get that hard shell. You have to create that hard shell, or
Oh,
if you take
yeah.
it home with you, you're gonna lose your mind because there's just so much
Yeah,
sadness out there.
exactly. You'll lose your mind. And I mean, I mean, for instance, that's why we hear so many people like in law enforcement who it does get to them, maybe
Hmm.
they might end up, with alcohol abuse problems or other things, a depression. It's hard, it's hard. And it's, for me, okay, I do my, I get the stories in, I edit the stories, I write my own stories, whatever, then it's done, I put the book away.
Yeah.
It doesn't keep following me around. But I mean, if you're inundated with this on a daily basis,
Hmm.
it's hard. And, you have to really admire people who throw themselves into that to,
Hmm.
help and
I think
protect.
that's why I enjoy doing this show, as opposed to being a newspaper every day, because you're inundated, like you say, you're inundated with those stories. They're always coming in like that. And with this, like I can do this show and I can go, okay, next. We had a
Yeah,
good show. Next. And so
on to
it's
the
kind of
next chapter.
on to the next
Exactly.
chapter. Yeah, it's kind of nice to do that because I
Yeah.
remember at one point when I first started working on the crime beat, I had the worst week in almost the history of the city. I had 5 different murders in one
They were
day.
just waiting for you to show
It was
up.
just waiting for me to show up. And I used to take it was horrible because when we drove up to Northern California, I used to take my mom and dad on a grisly tour of the freeway because there were always fatal accidents out there. So I'd be like, oh, that's where the guy flew through the window. That's where, and they'd be like, we don't need to hear this. But I'd be giving them a tour on the freeway. Oh, no, this is the spot where, yeah, you know.
I think isn't there some tours like that already? I
Yes.
actually.
My mom and dad were just like, we don't want to hear it. Don't want to hear it. Don't want to hear it. But that was my
Well,
life.
yeah, I mean, it's just how, it is going to make you think about it. How can you not if you've covered something and then, you were at a scene and it's like, of course that's going to pop into your head. And the first thing is like, for you, you're going to think it's, obviously you're going to mention it and it's
Mhm.
perfect. If you and I were in the car, I would be, oh yeah, cool. Wow, that's really something. But I suppose your parents or whatever are like, no, I don't really want to know.
You and I would have a good time in the car, you know. Um, yeah, I used to call it Death Alley. I mean, that's what I called it for years. Was Death
Oh
Alley when I was
God.
working, you know, because everything happened in that one alley, that one area of the freeway. But
That's
yeah, I
weird.
mean, I admire what you do. I admire you taking because how long does it take you to actually put the book together?
Well, it takes as long as when my deadline is.
Okay.
But I kind of try to work as quickly as I can, and I crack the whip with my writers once I've told if they've given me a pitch for a story and I like the pitch, and that doesn't mean I'm going to take the story, but if I like the pitch,
Right.
then I say, okay, go ahead and write it, and we'll see what happens. So, sometimes I have to kind of bang on the door a bit, like, if, are you done yet? But for these true crime books, they going by what other books take, I think they've gotten together really quickly. And that's because the minute I've got my contract, I get to work. I immediately start, casting out casting the call, so to speak. Getting responses in from people and getting people to start work. I start work
Hmm.
on my own piece. And so I'm trying to think. I'd say from the time I agree to the book to the time it gets out, or rather, no, to deliver it, I'd say I've been working often within a 6-month time frame from
Okay.
the contract to delivery date. But then, of course, we've got months, maybe 2 to 3 months of the copy editing. Although the copy editing is really not very much because I turn in really perfect work. So it's sort of like just somebody going through looking to see if it complies with Chicago Manual of Style or maybe
Yeah.
tweaking a sentence. That's basically it. Because I do my own fact checking. So you see, that's the other thing. That's the
Right.
most part that makes me want to die. you know, the fact checking. So
I know about that.
I fact check as I make sure I fact checked it before I even submit the final manuscript. But sometimes I might see something once the copy edit's come and I'm like, I need to recheck that again. And so, once the copy edits are in and then the proofing, and then I proof everything to death, like over and over and over. And sometimes I'll, like I said, in that whole process of the delivery date to the editing and whatnot, rather the copy editing, I might be working with the writers again saying, hey, check this again, or, do you want to add something here? So, but maybe 9 months, like delivering a kid, from start.
But see, I admire you because you're acting not only as writer, you're acting as editor, you're acting as publisher.
Well, in a way, because I think, to be honest with you, what I've okay, I'm not going to blow my own horn, but I will blow my own horn.
What the hell, we're here.
A lot of my contributors have told me that they think I'm a wonderful editor and they've loved working with me. And I think maybe why that is because I'm a writer. So I understand, I'm coming from that perspective. I'm not just some editor who's never written a damn thing, except maybe a letter. You know what I'm saying? So perhaps that's one of the reasons why I'm more intuitive and more understanding, and trying to, I don't want to change people's work. I don't want to change people's voices. And I don't think a good editor should ever do that. And I think there's always horror stories out there from authors about how an editor went and did something to their work and it wasn't theirs. It wasn't theirs anymore, or gave them advice to go in another direction, and it was a really bad direction and it ruined the work. I don't want to do that. I want that person's voice to ring true for their stories, and I want them to tell it the way they want to do it. My job is to just help them improve, or perhaps look at something else that to supplement, a little supplementary or context. And that's what I do. And then, of course, make sure the story is as cleanly written as it could possibly be. And, that's what I do as an editor. I'm not rewriting someone's work.
Right. And when you're fact checking, do you call the writers back to come back for the fact checking, or do you actually make phone calls on your own to fact check this stuff?
I don't phone anybody. I email. But yes, sometimes I'll get back and forth with a writer, could be even up to 3 or 4 times to check things. Because, that's the other thing is news reporting is not infallible. There can be things missed. And when you have a deadline, when you're a reporter on a deadline, sometimes you don't have time to make sure everything's absolutely spot on. And things get published, and then that information goes on and on, sort of like Chinese whispers. So you end up with mistakes. And so I have to check things with as many sources as I can find. And then I'll, get back with them and say, hey, look, I found some discrepancies in this. And this is what I found. And then they'll go and say, yeah, that is correct. Or look what I found. I found something else from this source. So, so we kind of get it together and try to be as accurate as possible. The worst thing to me would be to have a book full of errors, factual errors. These are true crime. It's got the word true in it. And I really live by that. So I really want things to be as accurate as possible. And, don't rely on blogs to get your information. They're not, most blogs are written by amateurs. They're not written by somebody who reports at the New York Times, so you have to be careful where that information comes from. You can certainly research something if it's say you found some information about a case at a blog, and that's like, okay, but then you got to go and look further. You need to really look as many sources as you can and get that accuracy in there.
What I found as a newspaper editor, and I've been editor at a couple different papers, I'm on a daily paper, is that once it goes into print, people believe it. And you can run all the corrections you want on page A2, none of the little correction things. It's not going to change people's opinions. So you as a reporter, you have a responsibility to be as accurate as possible, because you're dealing with somebody's life.
Yes.
And then you were talking about blogs. When the bloggers first came out, I was against it because I said, you know what? They don't know how to be. They don't know, like you say, they don't know how to be a reporter. They don't know how to take that middle ground. There's going to be more opinion in there than anything else from their end, and that's what's happened. When you go online and start Googling stuff, you get all these opinionated articles, and all this stuff's out there. They're not real reporters, so you got to be careful.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I did my undergraduate studies in journalism, so I think that that all kind of came back into play when I started with true crime. And despite the fact I didn't become a journalist, that's fine. But I think that gave me that training and that sense of responsibility and integrity, which any decent journalist should have. And there
Yes.
are journalists, as we know, with the tabloids and some of these off the wall publications that don't have that. But that's not how I was taught.
Me neither. And that's my whole thing. I have, certain ethics that I go by, and just like we were taught about, like getting free food on different events. You don't do that. But like when I was at the Woodland paper, because we were a small paper, they didn't care because it was like a hometown paper. But if you're working like for the Chronicle in San Francisco or you're at the New York Times, you don't do freebies. You don't do freebies at all like that because they
Well,
figure.
that whole kind of culture, though, isn't just with newspapers. I mean, let's face it. For instance, the United States is notorious for this, but the drug rep thing, taking the docs out to dinner, and then it's to push the new pharmaceuticals. I mean,
Yeah,
that's not kosher either. You really shouldn't be doing that.
yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. So when you're doing this, I'm curious about you. I'm curious about fact checking. Like you say, you're sending emails back and forth. Is there ever a time when you have to really get into a story that somebody has sent you and maybe get a hold of the courthouse or whatever to try and verify stuff?
Well, I ask them to do that because it's
Okay.
like I can only do, I do as much as I can, and sometimes it's, to be honest with you, I think it's way too much. But if it's like something that needs real hardcore clarification, and generally they'll say, okay, let me reach out or contact or whatever, and
Hmm.
clarify that. It's fortunately it's not really come up that often, and also the good thing is so many things are online now, so you could find a lot of records online, so
Hmm.
they could actually look at the actual court transcripts. And sometimes I'll be finding the court transcripts as
Right.
well, so I can check that as a
Right.
backup. But it's hard. I mean, people who have written like a full length true crime book on one case,
Hmm.
these really hardcore true crime writers, some of them hire fact checkers, and they have to pay out of their own pocket. Publishers
Hmm.
don't cover that.
Right.
So basically, that's coming out of your earnings for the book, and it can get quite pricey.
Yeah.
I don't have
Absolutely.
that kind of budget to do that. That would be impossible for me to do it. So I'm the fact checker hat. But
Right.
these full length books and everything, I have heard that a lot of these authors are having to shell out thousands and thousands of US dollars to hire a fact checker. And you kind of wonder, well, how good is that fact checker? I mean, because there's so much misinformation that gets
Hmm.
sent down the pipeline
Hmm.
that I don't know. I'm a control freak. I want to see it for myself. So
I think that's how I would be. I
yeah.
still have two books I'm working on. I'm forever working on books. It's because I get so busy with other stuff. I'm busy with TikTok now, and I'm trying to balance
I know,
get
I
this
see you on TikTok all the
get this
time.
stuff.
Once I think I was in bed, it was around midnight, and you were doing something. I think we had some problem with something, an outage of some sort. And
Yeah,
then you
yeah.
saw me, you're like, you're okay, Mitzi, you gotta be back on the show.
That was the night I did 2.5 weeks in my car
Oh yeah, the car.
because I had an internet outage, so I had to go to because I have to use my old cell phone. My new cell phone won't let me into my California Haunts TikTok account, so I have to use my old iPhone,
Oh, blimey.
which doesn't have a phone thing, which doesn't have phone ability. So I had to go to McDonald's and park outside. So I was out there like for a couple of weeks out in the parking lot at McDonald's. It was really
They didn't
funny
call
because
the police on you?
no security. I told security what I was doing, and the guy laughed. And I said, "Well, I'm working." I had a table out, in my car, by the steering wheel with the cards, and I'm flipping cards and stuff. And
That's
you know,
funny.
yeah,
That's
it was funny.
funny.
Well, I told when I first got into doing this card thing, I told Nancy because Nancy Matz is the one that said, "Oh, go, you should read tarot cards." And I thought, I'm not no gypsy. I'm not a gypsy. And then I got thinking about it, and I said, you do realize that I'm half Hungarian.
Yeah, well, we all have that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know.
And I
Yeah.
said, you do realize the background for Hungarians, what they are. They're gypsies. They're palm readers. And I said, I said, I don't want to be like that. And I said, I'm just sure as heck don't want to be in some caravan somewhere. And where was I for 2 weeks? in my car. So
that would have been funny. Get up the fancy curtains, a couple of ponies out in the back, a couple of violin.
Guy playing the violin in the back, yeah. But
my late father could have come out with his violin.
There you go. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So when Nancy said, "Yeah, you should read tarot cards," I went, "Whoa!"
Hey, look, you could have made a little side trade there,
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I ended up becoming a gypsy. So what's life like for you? I mean, like we talked about the schedule for writing these books. Are you able to take time off in between? I mean, while you're writing these books, or is it a constant? Okay, I know when the deadline is. Boom, 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 boom.
It's been, I'll be honest with you, the true crime has been since 2019 pretty much one after the other full time. Now I'm having I'd say it's a little bit of a break right now, and I'm trying to get back to a novel that I started and stopped when this Women Who Murder book came up. I've just done my third revision on it. I'm letting it sit and kind of percolate a little bit so that I could go back with fresh eyes probably before the end of the year. I have a lot of little projects that I want to get done, just some business related stuff that I have, just want to kind of get out of the way. I'm one of these people, I need things to be tidy. So I want to do all this tidying stuff and then get back to that book. It's not true crime. It's a fiction novel. And I'm really kind of keen to get back to fiction writing again. That's kind of my major thing that I love. The true crime's been good and whatnot, but it's been pretty intense, one after the other 8 books since 2019.
I can understand that. Yeah. I got like that with ghost hunting for a while. All the cases we were getting were intense cases for the longest time. And I thought, oh God, all I would like to do is just go to an old hotel and talk to some old miner, just do whatever, because it just gets every time somebody called, it was like, oh no, here we go again, because it's so stressful dealing with people's lives like that. But yeah, I can understand that, and I get like that too. Even with this, I'm trying to balance this now, balance my TikTok work, and then work on ghost hunting and do all this other stuff. And it's like I need like 5 more of me right now.
Yeah.
At this point.
Well, I have to tell you though, having that deadline has been it's good though. I mean, it's that I think that makes it harder for me with the fiction writing and the novel because there's not a deadline, and so I could kind of find excuses, which is not, that's naughty. But I mean, it's not like I'm not doing anything. I'm always doing some kind of a work, work. And I've got a couple of anthology projects I'm sort of kicking around, see if get any solid bites on that. I like doing anthologies, and short stories, and short pieces. I just find them. I think in today's world where everybody's so pressed for time, I think that's another reason why these books are so valuable, because maybe someone doesn't really want to sit down and try to read an entire novel, but you can dip in and out of, finish one particular thing and it's done. And then you can leave the next one for another time. It's not like you have to kind of keep this idea in your head that, oh, what was that? What happened in the last chapter? Because it's not relevant.
That's why I think ebooks are so popular. Because they're short, they're not these long 300-page novels and all this. People like that. People have a short attention span now.
That's true, but actually, I mean, I wouldn't say ebooks are short, because I mean, like, you've got George R.R. Martin has his books are ebooks. No one would accuse him of doing short books.
Yeah, I know, but some of the ones I've seen, I can tell you the stuff on like the stuff that I read on Sundays. They're definitely not short books. These books have all been it's Gutenberg.net. Yeah, the Gutenberg Project. And they've taken all these books from the 1800s all the way up to 1944.
Oh, yeah.
And translated them all. So I can tell you, Mary Shelley writes a long book.
Oh, yes.
10 weeks of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. So, I mean, you're right. I mean, there's a lot of this stuff that's been made in ebooks that's long. But there's also the ones that are shorter, and people like that stuff.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I hold my hand up about the attention span. I cannot even sit through a film, but I can sit through one after the other episodes of a series. You know, somehow I can do that, but a film, I'm finding it really hard to get through, especially if it's a longer film. And it's the same thing with books. If a book is too long, I'm like, oh my God, you know. But if it's a shorter book, and then I think also with publishing, because of the costs now, these inflated costs with printing, I think a lot of publishers are kind of more keen to get shorter novels. They don't necessarily want someone writing War and Peace because it's going to cost a fortune to print. No one's going to make any money.
Right. And I also think, a good example is attention span, and I can't say it, we've already mentioned it a couple of times, is the TNT, if you know what I'm talking about. Because, 1 minute, 10 minutes, that's it, and you're off. And then you got to do a part 2. And people love that stuff. That's why they like it. They'll just go video after video after video after video after video. People like it because they don't want that. They don't want to be like they'll sit there for hours going through the little videos, but the minute they get something long, it's goodbye. Like when I go to read my stuff tomorrow, I might get like 3 people that stay, and that's it. The rest of them will stay a minute, 2 minutes, and they're gone.
Yeah. No, it's just hard, and I think social media has probably contributed to our attention span just shrinking up. It's there's a downside to that, obviously, because important events are reduced to a soundbite, and people are not getting all the information and all the facts, and there's just nobody's really finding things out. They're not.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So what's next for you?
Well, like I said, I'm planning to get back to revision 4 of the novel. And that's kind of like high on my list of priorities when I get these piddly little tidying jobs out of the way. And that's really about it. If I get another anthology happening, then that's fine. I'll get on that. And that's it. All I do is work.
But what do you do when you're not working?
I don't know. There's no such thing.
That would be me.
I'm serious. I'm always working or doing, there's just, every single day, there's not like a day I take off and say, I'm not going to do anything. And then obviously with as an author, you're kind of, having to do, your social media stuff. So that's something to keep up with all the time. You kind of have to let people know you're alive, I don't necessarily have to come out and like on social media say, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book. But of course I want them to do that. It's just kind of keeping those connections and people sometimes, if they kind of like you and enjoy your posts and whatever, they could get interested in the books as well.
I just talked to my best friend for the first time in like 7 days because the first thing out of her mouth was, God, you're hard to get a hold of now. And it's like, yeah, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Then, I eat dinner at like 1 in the morning, and then I crash.
Oh, God.
I'm up at 6. And maybe I'll go back to sleep if I'm lucky. But then if I can't, I crash till like 11, and then my day starts all over again. To do the social media and keep all that stuff going.
Yeah.
There's like no
time consuming. Social media is another job. It is a job, and authors are just now, the burden is on all of us to be doing the selling. The publishers don't see, unless it's somebody that's a real big name and they're going to put some money behind the, promo, everybody's sort of left to fend for themselves. And it just is something that is ongoing and really getting worse.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mitzi, how can people find you?
Well, they can find me at my website, MitziSeretto.com. And that's, I think you've got it on the YouTube description, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
And I'm on Facebook and I'm on X, formerly known as Twitter, that we're all bailing from. I'm still there. I have a TikTok channel I occasionally do stuff at. I've got an Instagram. I've got Blue Sky, which a lot of people are moving to, and Threads, and Mastodon, and Spoutable, and LinkedIn, and I don't know. I'm everywhere.
It never ends.
I'm everywhere.
I know how it is.
I'm sure I joined something else recently. I can't remember what.
Then remembering all the passwords for all this stuff is miserable too.
Pinterest. I'm on that now.
Pinterest.
Whatever.
I haven't gone to Mastodon yet. I'll have to go check out Mastodon.
Yeah, no, you don't want to see my password thing. It's like 25 pages long.
I got that. Yeah, I have a list somewhere too of them. It's horrible. It's horrible.
It is.
Thank you so much for coming on. We'll have to get you on again. It's
Oh
always
yeah,
fun.
well, thank you so much for having me back.
Sorry it was such a long drought. We had a lot going on and switching stuff. And
Oh, I know.
I've been off like a month from doing regular shows, because of the internet thing, and so I'm just glad to be back on and doing stuff, and we'll get you back on though. You're always fun to talk to.
Hopefully another new exciting book.
Hungarian to a Hungarian,
Yes.
Got this going on, So
absolutely.
All right, well, thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, guys, that's always fun to talk with Mitzi. Love having her on. She, like we said, she's a Hungarian, so we get along really great. Tomorrow I will be on back. I will be back on. I'm back. See where I'm at. I will be back on at 5 p.m. Pacific. And my first private chat came up. Thanks, Mitzi. You're welcome. I see my private chat. We'll be back on at 5 p.m. Pacific tomorrow. We're going to be reading from a holiday-themed book or a winter-themed story. Spooky, of course. We're not going to read anything too fluffy. So that will be starting tomorrow, and then we'll be switching to our regular holiday-themed book coming up the weekend after, because of course that's Christmas season really after Thanksgiving. So be on the lookout for that. So that'll be 5 p.m. Pacific tomorrow. I want to thank you all for coming tonight. For anybody that's listening out there and is interested, I will be on TikTok around 7 p.m. Pacific doing some free 3-card readings, past, present, future readings. I'm also doing private readings as well. $15 for love readings and things like that. I can do Celtic crosses, you name it. But anyway, if you're interested in that, just contact me at caesarsghost@yahoo.com. It's CESARSGHOST@yahoo.com. Or find me on TikTok. Follow me, and we can communicate that way as well. But I'll be over at TikTok in about an hour, and I'll see you guys there, whoever comes over. But other than that, see you guys tomorrow, and have a great night. Okay? See ya. Grab your popcorn and snacks. Find a comfy spot, take a seat or lie down, and let me transport you to a place of fantasy, ghost stories, ancient legends, odd creatures, alien encounters, and other magical topics. You may even decide to join the conversation. From faraway lands to your own backyard, with a small dash